do whatever we can.
Okay.
And I've got my laptop here. It's just rebooted. So let me see if I can.
So let's try that.
Hey, YouTube.
Hey, everybody. We're working. Alex is working on trying one last shot on his laptop. He had some problems getting in before. So we tried the old reboot, and we'll see if that does anything. Otherwise, it's going to be from his phone. So be nice, everybody.
I see. I was going to say, I see in the chat that it's Rhett's birthday. Happy birthday, Rhett.
Happy birthday, Rhett.
You're a couple months younger than me, man. I don't know how I feel about that.
So we're going to jump right into the show because Alex, we may lose Alex. So I think, guys, let's.
Any other stuff we can just save till afterwards, and then those watching live, maybe download the podcast for once and listen to that too, and see how the order of things might be different.
Yeah, so we'll do the intros. We'll do the introduction, the intros. Should we go through tasting, or should we just get to the interview?
We should taste.
Okay,
with him.
We'll do a taste. Let's keep the tasting short, and then we'll do the interview, and then depending on where we're at, we'll come back and do all the wine, beer, pop culture,
and I'll brag about being a big winner and all that fun stuff.
Most of the show anyway. So, all right. So, Alex, we're going to be talking for a little bit. Then we'll introduce you. There'll be a little bit of music. There's going to be all kinds of stuff happening, but feel free to chime in. Are you at the point of being able to try the link?
Yeah, I'm just opening up my Outlook right now, and I'm almost. Yeah, here I am.
Okay, let's see what happens here.
Yeah, let's see.
Hey, Jeff McKinney. Hey, Laura. Hey, Brad. Hey, Cody.
Oh, shit. Yeah. No bueno.
Same thing. All right.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yep, we'll make it work. All right, here we go. Oh wait, no, I gotta start recording. Here we go.
At the sound of the tone, the official "We Like Drinking" time will be 5 o'clock. Commence consumption.
This week, on episode 315 of the We Like Drinking podcast, we'll be discussing who is the biggest loser. Pliny the Younger makes a huge blunder, and we're getting a good view of the Notre Vue Estate Winery and Vineyards with winemaker Alex Holman. So crack open that beer, uncork that wine, and let's get drinking. Oh, folks. You know, if you're just listening to the show, you're really missing out on some opportunities for high quality visual entertainment by joining us on the live show every Tuesday night at 7:30 Pacific time. Jeff Solomon is just rocking some chaos here.
Yeah, what's my name? Say my name.
Jeff, the biggest loser, Solomon. So let me say cheers, my podcast drinking friends, and welcome to Happy Hour 315 of your favorite award-winning topical beer and wine education podcast focusing on fun. Oh, look at you guys in sync and everything. Here we go. So make sure you never miss another episode of our branded Drinking Fun by visiting welikerdrinking.com/subscribe. No subscribes out of you, Solomon?
Oh, subscribe.
So we're going to get right to it. We've got a guest tonight. We're having some technical difficulties with him, so our time may be limited with him. So we're going to try to get to him and get through what we're drinking and all that fun interview stuff. But let's find out who we've got and what we're drinking. We're joined by our usual panel members. We have our California Sustainable Wine Growing Ambassador and recovering wine blogger, Jeff Solomon.
Hey, shalom, everyone.
Our commercial brewer and snake wrangler, John Ruyak.
Hey, everybody.
And I am your host and certified specialist of wine, Jeff Eccles. Now, our guest this week is the winemaker at Notre Vue Estate Winery, a winery that has been producing wine for nearly 50 years out of Sonoma County. He is a native of San Francisco, graduated with a chemistry degree from CSU Fresno after spending 5 years in the Army. He has spent the entirety of his winemaking career in family-owned wineries, and he is Alex Holman. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here. I actually got a charger on my phone, so I think we're copacetic.
Yeah.
I love, it was straight out of like an action army movie with you running through the combat zone there on your phone. It was adventure throughout the
I'm not the most technical savvy, but
It's Blair Witch Project.
I'm definitely not the Ivory Tower winemaker.
That's what we like to hear. So you can follow Notre Vue on Instagram at Notre Vue Estate and on their website at NotreVueEstate.com. All right, so we have some wines here to drink, Alex. Do you know what we have?
Yes. You got the Chardonnay Muscat and maybe the GSM Rosé.
Yep, and we also have
third one is
the Proprietor's Red Blend.
Okay, right.
All
2000
right.
Eccles. You have 2017.
What year? Is that the 18 or the
Yep.
17?
I have 17.
Okay.
All right, and Alex, are you drinking anything tonight?
Yeah. I'm drinking the Muscat.
Oh, perfect. That's what John's drinking as well. So John is drinking that. Jeff and I are both drinking the red blend. I think we're all saving the bubbles for
Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
We are cheap SOBs saving samples for special days.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, that Proprietor's Blend is not my wine, but it's what we're on now. So so I can't take a whole lot of credit for that one.
I'm
Nice.
going to give you all the credit anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, how long have you been with Notre Vue?
March of 2019.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
And,
excellent.
yeah, and I don't know if you knew the tragedy that hit us. 2 months into my tenure here, we had a structural fire, and I lost 515 barrels and 3,200 cases.
Oh,
Wow.
and you lost.
Overnight, the whole inventory gone.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we were on the verge of having you on the show. I think it was like July 19 or somewhere around there. And yeah, that went away really quick.
Yeah, no. And then the Kincaid fire in 19 came through the property. So it was a hell of a year, first year here.
Yeah. Well, you made it through, thankfully. And now you've reached the pinnacle because you're on this show.
Yeah, right.
There you go. So John, you got the Chardonnay, yeah?
Yeah, I do.
All right. What are you thinking of that one?
I was telling Solomon before Alex came on that my wife made me some avocado chimichurri to put on crostini, and that's kind of my snacky dinner thing. And boy, it's just smells delicious. I get some floral notes and just the kind of rich but kind of clean pear flavors. Even with the fatty avocado is a really nice complement with all the herbs and stuff that are in this. So yeah, I really do like it.
Yeah, it's quite an unusual clone. It's a 809 clone, and they make most of the Muscat selections. The big one that I've always been familiar with is Sauvignon Muscat, and they all have that terpene quality of like a Muscat. And the only three I know of is Viognier Muscat, Chardonnay Muscat, and Sauvignon Muscat. But they're just clonal variations that they identified, and this one had to be cleaned up and is actually a certified European clone. And I got to take, this is my, for lack of a better term, unoaked press it gently into stainless and ferment it cold in stainless. And then once it's done, I'll sulfur it and rack it dirty into barrels and then surly stir it for, till March. And then give you that creaminess and that mouthfeel. But the aromas are just not Chardonnay like at all. But then you get it in your mouth and you're like, oh, okay, there's the Chardonnay.
Yeah. I get the creaminess from sitting on the lees, I think is what that is. Is that not? Or
Yeah, for sure.
I always like that about this extended tirage or surly type of stuff. It's that extra dimension that you like to see in examples that you don't have all the time. I try
not to get too heavily oaked on any of my wines, and so this, it doesn't. It's all in neutral oak, and it just all the structure comes from pretty much just the grape and the surly. So it's quite a unique wine in a sense. And then I make another, traditional barrel ferment, that's more oak and butter. But you need to have some kind of separation. There's nothing worse than having multiple varieties that all taste the same because you're just using the same, recipe, so to speak.
Yeah. Now, Jeff, have you gotten into this prior to blend yet?
I have. And I'll tell you something. Even though I'm wearing glasses right now, I will tell you that when I poured it, I was not. And the color on this is fantastic. The 2017, it's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. I'm assuming, Alex, as we go into the future and future releases, it's going to be the same type of blend.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're sort of expanding our Notre Vue lineup, and so, I'm a little unusual in a sense. I feel that the star of northern Sonoma County and the Bordeaux is not Cabernet; it's Malbec, and so, the 2019 right now, my blend is 50% Malbec and 30% Cab, and then the other three sisters. So,
wow.
I'll be able to play around with that. And like I say, I didn't blend that. Well, I blended the Malbec into it, but I love blends, and so that's sort of my thing. And a lot of it, my GSM blends are all co-fermented. Bordeaux, I tend to stay varietal, and then I'll blend on the desk. So,
what I was having a flashback to, Eccles, was when we were in a blending class together doing some Sonoma County Bordeaux style, and I remember the Malbec being just such a superstar there, right? I will say on this guy right here, the 2017, there's this wonderful red fruit up front, but there's just this massive depth of flavor. This is super. When I say long on the finish, and deep, it's not heavy. This is definitely a food approachable wine. It's got some zip to it, which I'm a fan of quite a bit. I was actually wondering, and I know because Alex, you were talking about how you didn't really have a hand in the 2017, but I saw reading from you earlier, you like to lean more towards native fermentations and things like that.
Yeah, almost 90% of my ferments are native.
I think that's so cool, and I love how you were also mentioning that you're more of a proponent of lower alcohol and just kind of it seems to me, as the only other person on the panel that's from the San Francisco Bay Area, it seems I think you and I kind of vibe when it comes to our palates on wine, and I just wanted to take a moment to just bro out with you on
Yeah,
that.
well, right on. Well, I appreciate it. I do feel that it's sort of coming back to my style. I've always, I joke. I've worked with some pretty high end wineries, and I learned more about what I didn't want to do in winemaking rather than trying to steal ideas. In a sense that I don't necessarily addicted to going after scores, and I wanted. You always, regardless of what the price point, you have to give your people some sense of value, and whether it's $10 or $50, and I just gives it gives the consumer a lot more value rather than just the only thing this goes with is blue cheese.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and I'm loving. I know you didn't have a hand in this one, but this is it's really a tasty wine. There's Jeff was talking about all the red fruit he got on the nose. I still, and you don't get this a lot out of the California wine. Chalk Hill maybe a little bit more, but I still get a lot of the earthy notes in it. There's a lot of earth and depth, and it seems a lot more old world to me in profile
right, and that is definitely true. I don't know if you're familiar with Kaluna wines, but they're our neighbor, and Dave Jeffries is a winemaker I went to school with, and he's a good dude, and he trained in Bordeaux, and he sought out this area to do Bordeaux blends, and it's interesting because the cab in Sonoma County is not the Napa cab, and if you come over from Napa trying to make Sonoma cab like a Napa cab, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just more subtle. There's more dried herbs and rose petal and more delicate rather than big hit you over the head juicy jammy stuff. So and that's where the Malbec always comes in as a great blender for that.
Yeah, so delicious stuff. Again, thank you for sending these out to us. We're going to enjoy these the rest of the show, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Before we move on, Jeff Solomon is super excited. He's been chomping at the bit to brag a little bit. So since Alex has got his phone plugged in and he's charging, we're gonna let Jeff brag.
Let me tell you something. I remember. What's that?
He stood up for this, ladies and gentlemen.
I am. I'm very fired up. And this will not be the first time I stand up tonight. Part of it is I want to show off my cool douchey t-shirt that I got from Curacao a while back. Because I'm feeling very douchey right now. Let me tell you why. I remember a while back when we first all went on lockdown last March. I remember sitting in this very room talking about look, this is the time we all got to exercise. We got to get out. We're not going to be on the other end of this all fluffy and everything. And then I watched my clothes fit tighter and tighter and tighter over the course of the next 8 months or so. And I remember just sitting there, going into Thanksgiving, feeling miserable. And then I had this idea. I said, you know what? I'm going to challenge these other knuckleheads on the podcast to a weight loss competition because I may not like myself enough to lose weight on my own, but I'm damn sure not going to let anybody else beat me in a competition. So I challenge these guys to a weight loss competition starting the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and it was ending this last Sunday, January 31st. So, a full over 2 months of just rock hard, just working every single day, watching what I eat, watching my figure, got all fired up. And I remember I'd be checking in. All of a sudden, John decides that, getting COVID is what his technique is going to be. And I think it kind of worked a little bit. But I remember checking in with Jeff Eccles, and I go, how you doing on this whole weight loss thing? He goes, yeah, I'm not really doing anything. Well, let me tell you something. I need to tell you something right now because, and I'm no gentleman. I'm not going to list your actual weights because I know, like, you know, we're Hollywood types here and we don't give that away. But I will talk about losses. I will talk about the fact that Eccles, in spite of not trying, you're still a loser.
That's
Eccles lost over the course of 2 months. Eccles lost 0.6 pounds. And that, my friend, is an accomplishment. You are a loser. John Ruyak. In spite of getting like really sick, like I really like John, honestly, I thought you were going to die for a little bit. And I'm glad that you're here so I can talk shit about you. You're still a loser and you're more of a loser than Jeff Eccles. You lost 9 pounds, dude. Way to go. And I, Jeff Solomon, the biggest loser of all. I mean, look, okay, I have to be honest here. I made this bet going into Thanksgiving, knowing that I could just eat as much as I want to going into the weigh-in, because the more I weighed going in, the easier it would be to kind of lose all that stuff. So I just ate a shitload. I drank gallons. John, listen to me. Look, gallons. I drank gallons of water. Going into that first weigh-in, I weighed more than I've ever weighed in my entire life going into that just for this stupid competition. And in the end, and by the way, I didn't eat for like 20 hours going into this last weigh-in. In the end, I lost 23.6 pounds. I'm a big fucking loser. Deal with it, everybody. I'm the loser. Screw you.
See, I went the other way. I just drank dinner during COVID.
Yeah. Like I ate like 4 cinnamon rolls before I weighed myself on January 31st. Like I was like,
well, here's I'm kind of happy that I haven't gained back my pre-illness weight. That's usually, everybody, you get a really bad cold, you get the flu, and you lose 6 or 7 pounds, and I've managed to keep it off. But I just went on a bender last week. I texted these guys. I came home from work. I opened up a 375 of Pinot Blanc from St. Innocent, and I sat down. I watched a hockey game on TV, and I was dipping peanut butter pretzels in cream cheese. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not winning the contest.
Well, I was intimidating everybody. Everybody saw, I was like, oh, Jeff's looking very look at me. You can see my sweet farmer's tan going on here.
By drinking a gallon of water before he weighed in.
Is that like a nouveau Elvis thing?
What's that?
You know what? It's just, sure. At least I didn't pass out face down in an open bag of Philly cream cheese.
Right. God.
Well, congratulations, Jeff Solomon.
That's right. From here on out, forever, call me a loser.
Done.
No problem.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So congratulations to you on that, Jeff. Let's move on with everybody's favorite bit that we like to call wine, beer, spirit, or pop culture reference. This is where I'm going to give these guys a term, and they're going to try to tell me if it's a wine term, a beer term, a spirit term, or some kind of pop culture reference. The term this week is Diddy Bopper. So is Diddy Bopper a wine term, a beer term, a spirit term, or some kind of pop culture reference? Let's start with the biggest loser, Jeff Solomon.
Jeff Eccles, can you spell Diddy Bopper, please?
I can. It is all one word, and it is Dittybopper. Ditty Bopper.
Ditty Bopper.
Is that something like a Cingadera? Is that what it is?
Hold on. You'll get your turn, Alex.
Yeah, Alex. So Diddy Bopper, one word. You know what's interesting is like, I'm so glad you spelled it, because if it was Diddy Bopper, like with double D's, I was thinking it would be a pop culture reference having something to do with Sean P. Diddy Combs. Like, you know, he gets really stoked on like a new track he just laid down. He's like, that's a motherfucking Diddy Bopper right there. But Ditty Bopper, I still think it's a pop culture reference. I still think it's a music reference. This sounds like it honestly sounds like it's like it was a song, it was like an early collaboration between Little Richard, Tiny Tim, and the Big Bopper. They all got together. They made a song called the Diddy Bopper.
All right, there you go. Jeff,
crazy enough, it was then quasi covered in the 1980s by one of those like hair bands. It was like Diddy Bopper, something and the stuff. That one. You remember that one?
John Ruyak.
Diddy Bopper. I'm like, I was thinking, you know, it had something to do with fingering potatoes, but it's not diddle. Anyway, I'm going to say this is a pop culture reference, and it's something that Bill Murray says in the movie Groundhog Day while he's playing piano in one of his days.
Okay. The chat is just lit up with pop culture reference. Chelsea says it's how you describe Solomon's look today. We've got
Douchey.
Lori joined us. She says it's someone in a gentleman's club with a speech problem. Cody thought for sure it was something to do with the stock market. Just all kinds of pop culture references. Alex Holman, former military guy, former Army guy. What do you think Diddy Bopper is?
You know what? I've used that term. We've used Diddy a lot and just sort of slang things. And a Diddy Bopper seemed to me like it was a slang. But however, if it is alcohol related,
it doesn't have to be alcohol related. Doesn't have to be alcohol related.
Understood. But if this is beer, wine, spirits, or pop culture, right?
Yep.
So there are a lot of things on a still that have really crazy names like that. And it almost sounds like the little thing that you bob the hydrometer in a still, in a continuous still, as you're taking spirits off a still. So
okay.
I do know I've used Diddy Bopper in slang just for like chingadera. And,
okay.
But if I was to guess alcohol, I would say it's part to a continuous still.
All right, so going with a spirit and part of continuous still. John, what did you said pop culture reference as well?
Yep.
And Jeff Solomon said pop culture reference. All right, Diddy Bopper. Congratulations, Rhett, by the way. I see what you wrote there. Diddy Bopper is, in fact, we're going to go with a pop culture reference on this. It's a common Army term having two different meanings. It can be Morse code signal given to intelligence radio operators, or it can describe a soldier marching out of time with the cadence of the other soldiers. I tried throwing a softball to Alex, and it went through his flowing hair.
Yeah, it's been 30 years. So, yeah, and that's what a ditty is. A ditty is a song when you're running in formation. And so, yeah, Diddy Bopper is somebody, who's bopping out of line. Yeah, you're bringing back some flashbacks.
I didn't mean to do that. But Diddy Bopper is a pop culture reference. All right, we've had a lot of fun with the show. Let's get down to the serious stuff, Alex. Let's get to the interview portion. So we've got a lot to talk about. We've been able to taste the wines. You definitely seem to have, you've got some old world Bordeaux blends. You've got some more new world blends. But one thing I notice about you, the Notre Vue property, is that you run across both the Russian River AVA and the Chalk Hill AVA. So
correct.
how do you spread out your grapes and your wines across those AVAs?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's always been, not a controversy, but it's always a choice. And for the sake of, being more accurate, you can split our property in half in soil type. And the lower elevations are ancient seabed clay type. And that's where all the Chardonnay, all the Pinot, Sauv Blanc. So we generally put Russian River for the clay soil, and then up on top in the elevation is typical chalk hill volcanic basalt soils. So all our Bordeaux's and our GSM and all that that grows up on top on the hillside vineyards, we put a chalk hill AVA on it. So we have the option. You can do whatever we want, but again, Chalk Hill Pinot Noir has no cachet. So, you want to go with what makes sense to the consumer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. There is that one move you can pull in the tasting room. You're like, have you ever had a Chalk Hill Pinot Noir? And somebody goes, why I haven't? And you go,
a hillside Chalk Hill.
And so now you guys produce two brands. So we are tasting all the Notre Vue. And what is the other wine?
Balvern. Yeah, Balvern's the historical name of the property. So when back in the 70s through the 90s, it was Balvern, and that was the wine that actually had some acclaim. Doug Knoll was the winemaker back then, and actually got served in the White House and all that. And so they wanted to bring that brand back, but they also wanted to have a more pinnacle, estate-like brand. And so when I got here, there was only 3 wines in Notre Vue, and we've sort of settled it out. And since we lost all that wine, I it was just like, going to the fair. I got to make whatever I wanted just to get all these SKUs back online.
Right.
And just made whatever we can. And we're back to about 7 or 8 SKUs on each. And the Balvern is more price point, for, from 20 to 38, 40. And then Notre Vue is the 40 to 60 range. So we separate the two in price point. And, the Notre Vue is certainly a little more oak and a little more elegance. And Balvern is more of a 3-tier. We sell Balvern in New York, where we don't really sell Notre Vue anywhere but, here on property.
And can you buy it online through the Notre Vue?
Yeah, absolutely. You can buy all varieties online. That seems to be the go-to these days. And so we're just getting back on distribution, and with COVID and everything, it's just been a real nightmare. The big boys and the consolidations are really making out in COVID, and the little guy is really struggling.
Yep, and that's across all industries and everything else, and we don't need to go down that rabbit hole of anger and screaming. But speaking of screaming, Jeff Solomon.
What? Like, I'm this angry guy. Alex, you grew up in the city?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. So growing up in the city, what do you recall being like your first experience in wine? Like, what kind of drew you towards the wine industry?
Yeah. Well, I do remember my dad. My dad drank wine just one glass at night. I come from a big family of boys. There's 5 boys in my family, and so we were all pretty athletic. And my parents are sort of square, so it wasn't a big deal. But I grew up in an Irish neighborhood in the city, and so beer. I got into alcohol through beer rather than through wine. And I was a home brewer forever before I got into wine. But yeah, well, if you really want to know, in high school, we used to drink that Almaden Mountain Nectar Rosé. You know, the big jug, you know, and you have you're drinking your beer and then you pass around the jug. But yeah, no, I didn't really, my dad, had wine and but it wasn't really paramount. And I sort of got into wine through chemistry and through being a chemist. And in Fresno State, my mentor in chemistry was Barry Gump, and he was the guru in the enology department. So I sort of transitioned over to wine from beer in college when I went to Fresno State. So it's just sort of, yeah, it was sort of by happenstance. It wasn't anything that I grew up being around. I mean, we always had, nice wines, but not a lot. And my parents weren't big drinkers. We Ocean Beach is where I learned how to drink.
Yeah. Well, I find I always love kind of hearing those transitions because it's these little like points of demarcation that along the way, it doesn't necessarily seem like something. And then all of a sudden, it culminates into something great, like my big buy-in to wine is I'm a biology teacher, and so I love seeing that, and it never surprises me when I see somebody come from the science world into the fermentation world.
Right. Yeah. The other motivation was also, how do I get out of Fresno?
That's a big one.
And I figured I could get my wine degree. I was working in a chemical plant in Fresno, smelling like sulfur every day, and I was like, "How the hell do I get out of here?" And so I figured if I got a wine degree, I could at least get to the coast, whether that be Central Coast or North Coast, and I sold my soul to the devil to get out of Fresno. That's for sure.
You know what, though? So I don't know if you guys know this. I was in a punk band when I was in high school. Our very first out-of-town show, Fresno. Played for 3 people, got paid with a 6-pack of Pepsi, and we got the fuck out of there.
Sean Riak.
So, yeah, I do have a couple of questions, but we kind of go around the table. So my first question is, and we were kind of the owner of the brewery and I were talking today about Allagash Brewing in Maine, and they're a lambic brewer, and they ferment in cool ships, open vats, and they opened up a new facility. And what they did when they opened the new facility is they emptied out a couple of fermenters, a couple of cool ships, and they went in and they took fire hoses and they inoculated the entire brewery with yeast. Is that something that a winemaker would ever consider, considering you use native fermentation, or are you concerned about those kind of things, like that odd thing popping into the juice?
And they had a specific Saccharomyces that they wanted to plant into the corners of the rooms and all that. Is that?
Well, they found that Allagash didn't necessarily start as this open fermentation place, but they discovered over time that they can do a wild ferment there with beer. And so which is really hard to do. It is super hard to do. There's only 5 or 6 places on the planet that it's done.
Sundberg does that.
Yeah. So I was just curious if there.
Well, yeah.
Are there things like that you do in a native fermentation type of winemaking facility, or are you curious? I'm always afraid, and don't get me wrong. My brewery is sanitary, but when you scrub in corners and stuff like that, you're afraid you're going to wake something up that you don't want to.
Yeah. It's interesting. Being a chemist, I definitely am more in tune to the biology and the microflora and whatnot. And I'm not big on chemicals, but I do use a lot of ozone. And so I've got an ozone machine that we saturate ozone water, and that's good to clean gutters. And I use a lot of quaternary ammonia, which is what they It's the biocide that they clean chicken crap off of eggs. So it's very gentle and kicks ass. And like when I was at Keller Estate in Petaluma, they had a beautiful facility, and inside that facility was stucco, and it really the yeast lived in the stucco, and and once you get things going, and if you have your routine of what what I do differently also with native is I give it there's always the rehydration nutrients that you would give any kind of inoculation nutrients. So when you're trying to rehydrate yeast, well, I put all those nutrients into my fermenter because the native yeast in there needs some food too. And so I generally stay just on the stuff that comes in off the grapes, and I don't try stress too much. I mean, experience, everybody's always so paranoid that they're going to get stuck or, have some off flavors. But now with all these new products, that new native yeast that I can put in, that, the biggest in any inoculation, the biggest quality wins and it suppresses all the other stuff. So now with it, I inoculate a non-Saccharomyces yeast that doesn't ferment sugar, but then allows me not to put 50 parts of sulfite in at the crusher. So all my wines are half the sulfite of a normal wine. And I really feel it really contributes to that, the aromas and that care and the reducing of that muting quality that a sulfite will. And so there's a very prestigious winemaker back in the day that used to call himself a native fermentation. But the first three fermenters, he'd put Prix de Mousse in it, which is, the quintessential, bulletproof yeast. And so he would ferment the first tanks in Prix de Mousse, and then that would inoculate the room. And then he was thinking, yeah, I'm a native guy. And it's like, no, you inoculated with his other yeast.
Why does that remind me of like Mark McGuire's like steroid defense? He's like, oh, I don't take steroids. This is androstenedione.
That's right. Right.
Okay, Mark.
And so I think the secret of native fermentation in winemaking, beer is a little different because it has a lot more off flavors. And then that's where all the alembics have a little bit of funkiness. My natives are ultra clean. And I feel that it's not the yeast, it's the rate of fermentation. So when you inoculate a yeast, you're inoculating 2 million cells per mil, and it just ravages the sugar and then eats itself, and then it's done. Well, with a native, you're starting off with hundreds of cells per mil, not millions. And so the rate is just a lot slower. You don't build the heat, you get more aromas, and as long as you keep it steady, then it's a slow, steady rather than, Pinot if you inoculate Pinot, it can be done in 2 days, 3 days from 24 to 0. Whereas a native, it takes 2 weeks. So
when it ferments that slowly, you get much more even alcohols out of it. You never get the hot stuff. You don't get a lot of heat on them.
To me, it's more delicate flavors. Because just think about it. If my ferments I try to stay around 75 degrees, whereas a lot of people, especially with color. Back in the day, they're like, oh, Pinot, you have to get it to 90 to get the color. Well, I don't really care about that. I care about the flavor and the aromas, and I don't care about color. If you want color, get a Syrah. Don't complain about color to a Pinot. Pinot's about flavor, and so I don't really worry about that. And I would rather have the aromas and the delicate flavors rather than trying to hit it with a hammer so it doesn't get stuck.
Makes sense.
And so it's a little backwards, and it's just confidence. You have to have confidence in your process. You have to give a lot of oxygen during fermentation, and that's the only time in its life it needs it. And so many people are like, oxygen's your not your friend, and so they ferment in an anaerobic environment, and it doesn't feed the yeast, and then that's where the yeast struggle. And when the yeast struggle, and then they start dying and eating themselves, then you get the off flavors and the sulfur and whatnot. So
do you do any kind of micro oxygen or anything like that, or you just?
No, I don't need to do micro ox. I mean, that's all happens in the barrel. So yeah, I'm trying to, 10 years ago, I might call myself a natural winemaker because I don't want to throw the kitchen sink at it.
Yeah.
To me, I think natural winemakers gotten more, it's almost gotten to be a neglectful winemaker. It's like, you can't just forget about things and say, oh yeah, natural. And no, it tastes like shit.
So now, this part is just crazy to me. Notre Vue, you have 700 acres of land,
Yep.
but you only have 250 acres planted.
Right.
So that's just crazy to me. It's some of the most expensive property around.
Well, and 360 are a wildlife reserve. So
yeah.
There's forever. We have 360 acres of forever wild.
That's so awesome.
And it's really not plantable acres anyway. It's
okay.
And so from that perspective, the irony is, we were really at the bottom of the barrel after this structural fire and the Kincaid fire, and wanting to know how we're going to get back into the game. And then COVID sort of brought everybody back to the starting line. And the fact that we have all this open space, all these people with fancy tasting rooms and everything else, they can't do much business. Well, we've got all kinds of outdoor seating, and and it's just sort of chill. And so we've gotten a lot of traction by having a lot more outdoor space to do our tastings and entertain guests. So
wow.
it's actually been a benefit, or just we've been able to survive that way without and actually changing gears and doing well and getting people to the property. And it's hiking, and with COVID, it's like you join the wine club, you come on the property. We got all these trails and bike roads and hiking, and so now the big thing is, come on, get out of your house, come onto the property and hang out.
So as far as harvest or fruit management, does that wildlife buffer or that wildlands buffer create any problems? I've talked to other winemakers and done things with other winemakers that I've helped with harvests and things where they have problems with piercing from bees and yellow jackets. So if you got 360 acres of trees and birds and deer and all this other stuff.
Yeah. Well, we got it. Yeah, you pretty much in Sonoma County, you do have to, net your rows. So we do net, and that's not cheap. And we don't have a whole lot of yellow jackets, and there's other thing. Yellow jackets are a problem when you're not managing your fruit too, and so. Once you let it start getting pucker and whatnot, that's when the bees really start getting into it. We got a herd of turkeys. We got about 50 turkeys, and they don't they eat our cover crop more than they eat the grapes. And we got plenty of mountain lion to keep the deer population down. So, yeah, no, it's live and let live, and so we have a lot of wildlife here, and we embrace that. And so, that's part of the allure. Come out to the property and come see some wildlife on your hike. So yeah, it's when you have 200 and some odd acres, there's almost too much fruit to, you might lose a little bit here and there on the edges, but you know, but we don't have a whole lot of deer damage, so that's a good thing. The deers are really the big culprit, and boar and wild pigs, and we don't have a lot of wild pigs here either.
You're just reminding me of like running on like trails, and like I've had a couple bobcat encounters before, which bobcats are cute. I like a bobcat. I hope I never run into a mountain lion, but yeah, I honestly, it's so weird. You like kind of, yes, Alex, you're so good at your job. You stole a question out of my mouth when I was thinking like, wait, I could come to your property, get some wine, and just go walking in the woods. Like, yep. I think that's what everybody needs now. And I think, and that's something that, we talk to people in different wine regions saying like, look, we're open, come visit. And there's still this part of a lot of us where it's like, yeah, but I need to go cluster up like inside of some tasting room. And it's like, it's just awesome to like hear stuff like that. And on top of that, the wine is really good. Like that's really like, good. I'm really stoked on this. I have to assume that most all the fruit that we're using is coming from this estate vineyard here.
That's correct.
And would you say that there's like is there anything about the fruit at your vineyard that just kind of sticks out compared to like some of your neighbors? Like what do you think is the variety that you've got that you think is just blowing people away?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I've only been here 2 years, and I'm really interjecting my scientific, background, and I've got a lot of vineyard experience, and so we are, and the fact that we've had all these fires and whatnot, and so we're evaluating all these different blocks, and certainly I do love the Pinot here, and the Grenache is quite stellar, and the 3 stars on the property, I would say, would be Pinot, Grenache, and Malbec. I mean, but that Chardonnay Muscat is pretty damn good too.
Yeah.
So it's there. We've got a lot of we produce maybe 700 tons, and I cherry pick the best 100. So that's sort of where I'm at. And as we grow, we're going to be, the historical thing of this property is Alsatian whites. And we're pulling out some vineyards, some low producers. And I can see Gewürztraminer and Riesling and Pinot Blanc in my future.
Really?
Nice.
And just, trying to embrace some varieties in Sonoma County. You can't find Gewürztraminer in Sonoma County. If you want Gewürz, you got to go to Mendo, and it doesn't have to be that way. There's plenty of places to do that here, and so, the price of grapes. When you can get $4,000 to $6,000 a ton for a cab or maybe a Pinot, nobody wants to plant Sauv Blanc or Gewürztraminer that only goes for $2,000 a ton. But then, my counter to that is then you change the interspacing, and more vines per acre, and 6 tons per acre of Gewürztraminer at 2,000 gives you the same price as 3 tons of cab at 4. So there's a lot of ways to skin that cat, and I just think that variety in varietals needs to come back a little bit more. I think we're getting stuck in some ruts here a little bit, and that's why I like my GSM program. I make a sparkling, a still rosé, and a red wine, and I've got and they're all unique wines, all picked on the same day, co-fermented. Mother Nature's never going to give that blend ever again. You're not going to be able to pick that same percentage on the same day and have the same ripeness. I mean, it's never going to happen. So the fact that I can produce these sort of quirky blends that are unique, even though you're still making the same 3 varietals in the blend, every year it's always going to be a little bit different, and to me that's exciting. That gives some, that gets the consumer some it gives them a little education about how Mother Nature changes year to year, and how it's not just a recipe.
Yeah.
It's spontaneous and it's creative, and it's my gut. I'm walking the vineyards, and Syrah is 24 and Grenache is 22 and Mourvedre is 21 bricks, and I got to figure out what day that I want to pick them all to get 23 even. And so the percentages and the ripeness are always going to be different, and so it adds to a lot of creativity, and I really enjoy that part of my job.
That's awesome. That's a great way to put it. And listeners, if you'd like to try some of that experience, visit NotreVueEstate.com, NOTREVUE estate.com.
French for our view.
Oh, our view. Guys, let's go through. If you have one last question, let's get to it. Let's try to make it a little short because we're getting to running long. John?
Mike, but the answer to my question isn't very short, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So native fermentation is supposed to really, because everything is within where the grapes come from, and it's really supposed to express the terroir a little bit more.
Exactly.
What characteristics of your terroir do you think your native fermentation pulls out the most?
Well, they're always, and that the discussion of terroir is does the winemaker have a hand in terroir? Because all what I do, my cold soak, my fermentation, whatever, they all sort of have something to do, but the terroir here tends to be for different in every varietal, but like Pinot Noir in particular is very cherry-like, and it's not as big and earthy as some of the dense areas of Russian River. Some of those areas in Russian River have really fertile soils, not a whole lot of sunlight, surrounded by redwoods. So it's a different growing. We're a little bit out in the open, and we get a little hotter here. So, my Pinot is a lot more cherry and a lot more fruity and delicate. In addition, when you get up into the higher soils and the volcanic soils, there's a lot of minerality. And so minerality is a big part of the terroir here. And that's why I think native fermentation, like I say, the rate and the amount that you have there is real low. And every little thing I put in is microdosed. And so I'm not putting in all these, you can add everything you can imagine to wine these days. And I just don't want to do that. I want to pick it on the right day. I want to have minimal intervention. I want to have a healthy fermentation. And I want my VA to be minuscule at the end and make a really clean, fresh wine. And so I feel that my process is a real clean process. And so just like when you're making beer, the best beer is the freshest, cleanest beer. And doesn't really matter what it is. A new beer is delicious that way. And so wine is a little bit that same way. With the minimal intervention, it tends to be, real delicate flavors rather than hit you over the head flavors.
I can already sense all three of the panel members slowly opening up browsers to go order Pinot. You're hitting all the things that we like to taste in Pinot. So, Jeff Solomon, one last question.
It's everybody's favorite part of the show. It's where I tell our guests how to run their business. I'm thinking about all this extra acreage, and certainly we don't want to cut into any of the natural habitat. We want to be as minimalistic as possible, but there's got to be a place somewhere on the property where you could just build like the sickest skate park of all time, and I will drive up from Gilroy every weekend, taste some Pinot Noir, get fucking gnar in the bowl, and it's gonna be awesome.
If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna push that, Solomon, you better not just come up and taste some Pinot Noir.
There's actually a skate park literally 500 yards from our front gate.
Fuck yeah!
You're locked
Notre
in,
Vue, everybody.
You're locked in, Solomon. Every weekend, Jeff Solomon will be there with no sleeves on his shirt. To
Oh no,
ollies.
long sleeves when I skateboard, and pants. I actually wear pants sometimes.
Well, if Jeff Solomon's wearing pants, it must be time for the new segment we like to call. You know what really mashes my pulp? Jeff
Let
Solomon.
me tell you something. This is it's serendipitous that we've got Alex Holman coming in from Sonoma County. Alex, have you ever heard of a place called Russian River Brewery?
Oh, hell yeah.
So have you ever had
every time I got to do computer spreadsheets, I go down there and drink and work.
There you go. I love that.
They got the best outdoor. Their new facility is fantastic.
Oh, that's an awesome place to lounge and just kick back. So you've experienced, obviously not this year, but you've had Pliny the Younger before?
Yes.
Fantastic beer, right? Like it's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. And so now, Alex, we got to talk turkey, because here's what chaps my hide. What does it do, Eccles? It mashes my pulp. It mashes my pulp, right? I got really fired up because Russian River Brewing, like this year, we've all been on lockdown, and I really feel like they've been killing it. Like all lockdown long, like as soon as California kind of opened up the floodgates and said, yes, breweries, go ahead, start shipping cases within California. Russian River was like doing some really fun iterations of Pliny the Elder now they're doing a double dry hopped Pliny, and I had Pliny for president a while ago. And, about a month ago, they had released this statement about how they're not doing the Pliny the Younger release this year. They're not doing it because, well, it's an event. Everybody, even if you don't know the name of the brewery, you've probably seen a news segment where you've seen people waiting in line around a block to get an 8-ounce taste of Pliny the Younger. They're not doing it this year, obviously, because they don't want a bunch of people congregating, right? And so the headline is, we're not doing this year, but we're putting it in bottles for the second time ever. And if you live in the state of California, we are shipping it directly to your door. And I got fired up, man. I got so fired up. I believe it was Thursday, January 28th, 11 a.m. is when, and they gave all the details. You go to our online shop. We're going to release this. Everybody's limited to one email per adult in a household. They're going to go and comb over everything afterwards. Printed explicitly that this is not for resale. And if you buy a $100 mixed case, there's going to be 4 Pliny the Youngers in it. And so I, along with I kept it fairly hush-hush among my circle, which I think a lot of people did. I'm ready at 10:50. I've got their site open and I'm just refreshing every 30 seconds. And then all of a sudden 11 o'clock hits and my heart's racing and the page isn't updated. And I'm like, what's going on? I hit refresh. It's 11 o'clock and 20 seconds. Nothing. Heart's racing. 11 o'clock and 40 seconds. Refresh. Nothing. Heart's racing. At 11:01 and 23 seconds, all of a sudden I see it. The mixed case. I put it in my cart. I click checkout and I get put into a virtual line. And all I'm thinking is, I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm going to have Pliny the Younger coming to my house. 4 16-ounce bottles within a mixed case for $100 plus $20 shipping, but whatever. I'm just fired up, right? And I'm watching this line. It's got these little ticks going across. Whatever you do, don't refresh your page. If you do that, you'll miss your place in line. And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm in line, baby. Hey, let me ask you guys. How many of you have ever been in line at a store before with stuff in your cart? That ever happened before?
Yeah, today.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were you, John? The grocery store?
I was.
What was the best thing that you had in your cart?
Chunky blue cheese dressing.
And what if that chunky blue cheese dressing was the last bottle of chunky blue cheese dressing in that store? And in fact, you knew that business only makes that chunky blue cheese dressing once a year. You're looking at it in your cart and you're like, this is great. I've got this chunky blue cheese dressing. But John, have you ever had it where you're waiting in line at a grocery store with your chunky blue cheese dressing in your cart, and then the manager of your store comes up to you, takes the blue cheese dressing out of your cart, and says, fuck you. It's already sold out. Somebody else bought it. And you're like, what? Huh? It was in my cart. And you're like, no, they're like, no.
You're the third person who's had that same story.
We're sold out. Tough shit. And you're like, but it was in my cart.
Yeah.
I was waiting in line. And Alex, you know what I'm talking about, because I'm sure there was this fury of texts going in between people.
It was on the radio. I was listening to a sports talk radio from San Francisco, and the DJ was bitching about it. It was all over.
Here's the thing. Here's the worst part. So all of a sudden, I'm waiting in this virtual line for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it refreshes, and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then it goes, yeah, sorry, this item is sold out. Do you want to keep shopping? And I'm like, that's the only thing that was in the store. There's nothing. And I'm like, wait, what the fuck? And my buddies start texting me. They're like, dude, what the hell? I had this thing in my cart and now it's gone. And I'm like, this is the craziest thing ever. Russian River, I check their Instagram and I'm kind of going back in time. I see, hey, it's on the site. Everybody go get it. and you start reading the replies, and everybody's like, what the fuck? It was in my cart, and then it got taken away. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm not the only one. And then they release another statement, another Instagram thing like 10 minutes later, like, wow, that was quick. We sold out. And everybody's like, what the fuck? Like a bunch of bots, like bought all of our beer. And like, here's the thing. It's not like the experience of like, man, I'm really fired up. Like, I just want to buy this. Like, I love Russian River. Like, I'm just stoked. Like, this is kind of a cool experience. It's not like I showed up at the site and I go to click it and it wouldn't let me put it in my cart because it was already sold. It was like the way that it was set up was just like, it just made you feel like an asshole. No. And then,
it's sort of like the trying to get Burning Man tickets these days. Same freaking debacle.
It's just so fucked up, dude. And like the worst part is, then you look and you see some people that are like, well, whatever, I got mine. It's a bunch of sore losers, and it's like, no, fuck you, dude. And so like, and here's the thing, like I get it. Like Russian River, like even though it started as part of like Corbel, it is an independent brewery in like the most clear sense. They still do a lot of really good business. And I'm happy for them. But somebody said this. I saw somebody post something like this online. They said, hey, everybody relax. It's just beer. And like my whole take is, yes, it's just beer. There actually is a lot of good beer out there. And I like, don't get me wrong. Russian River, like world-class brewery, but they're not the only world-class brewery. They're just the only world-class brewery whose infrastructure was set up to make me and a bunch of other people feel like assholes. And like, it's like, and here's the thing. I then saw later, Russian River posted another thing like, I see a lot of people are upset. There were 110,000 people that were waiting to get these things. There's nothing we can do. And I'm like, no, there is something that Alex, you've seen their gigantic Windsor facility. And you know what I'm about to say. How about make a couple more batches of Pliny the Younger for this year only, in these, everybody's favorite phrase, in these unprecedented times. Maybe it's not about, the scarcity is what gets people excited about it, and people get excited about a lot of like local seasonal beers. The scarcity, like, that matters, but it also matters to like just do right by the people that fucking love your brewery and support you. Like, right. I really, really, really am disappointed with the response from them that like, because they said like, we hear you, everybody. We can't brew anymore. And it's like, no, you fucking can brew as much as you would like. You're just not. And it's like, I don't like being made to feel foolish. So I will say this. I will never again, never wait for a particular time to put Russian River beer into a virtual shopping cart, knowing that at any given moment, a robot's going to pull it away from me and tell me to fuck off and don't complain about it.
There's really nothing worse than a robot flipping you off like that.
Alex, if I go to Notre Vue and I put some wine in my cart, as I'm like entering digits for my credit card number, am I going to get a bot telling me to fuck off and not complain?
No. Yeah. No, in fact, I heard that because they've got a lot of people, they're selling that internationally too, and it's just getting out of control. And people are like putting in multiple sites and trying to, hoard it. So now they're saying one email, one order, and they're just gonna you put in your email and you get 4 bottles. That's it. And they're gonna start doing that, and that seems to be a little more logical. But you're right. I mean, I don't know, and the way these wineries are starting to do it too, making an allotment and say, oh, we're in an allotment, sorry, you can't have any. And it's like, just make more. Why are you trying to sell wine under the guise that, oh, it's hard to get, so you better get in line? I mean, nobody wants to do that.
I can see that with wine where there's one harvest every year.
Right.
Russian River could make as much Pliny the Younger as they could.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There is no limit to the amount other than the size of their brewery and their production schedule. There's no limit to the amount that they could make.
But then,
and those Pliny's, they shut down everything and just do Pliny the Younger. They all the other time of the year, they're making multiple batches, and they got about 20 big ass fermenters, so they're constantly doing that. But when they do Pliny the Younger, supposedly it's the whole brewery dedicated to that one beer, and that's why they only do it one time a year.
And I will say, I think some people might think that Pliny the Younger is like this one day thing. It's like 2.5, 3 weeks until they run out. Like when it's an in-person thing, like I understand COVID times, they cut staff and they cut production, but it's not like they're not currently making beer. I know I sound kind of douchey, but it's just you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
what a nice problem to have for a brewery.
Right.
John, I'm just saying, maybe the next time somebody orders a growler of Musical Highway IPA, you fill it up, you put it on the table, you start to enter the credit card number, and then you throw the credit card back in their face, take the growler, smash it on the ground, tell them to fucking leave. And then they go, hey, and you go, what are you going to do about it, bitch?
Yeah.
All right.
Or just chug it in front of them and walk away.
Yeah.
Just rip your shirt off, pour it all over yourself, do like a flash dance thing.
All right. Well, if Jeff, the biggest Karen Solomon, is asking to speak to the managers, it must be
Last call.
Last call. Time to clean house and lock the doors. You know what we do here, folks. We're looking for the help from you. John Riak, if the folks want to follow us on the social media platforms, how can they do so?
Hey, you can follow us on Twitter. That's We Like Drinking 1, the numeral 1. Instagram at We Like Drinking. And the hangout spot on Facebook, We Like Drinking's Tavern. That's welikedrinking.com/tavern. You have to ask to join, but we're really not all that picky. We'll let you in.
Jeff Solomon, I hope you're looking at the notes. But if the folks want to leave a review of the show, where and how can they do so?
Making me scroll the hell down. Here we go. Yeah. So look, go ahead, take a look at your phone right now, enter a big fat 5-star review, and then leave an honest review talking about how much you love the show. And then, by the way, I'm taking all 5 stars back. Unlike recent Apple Podcast reviewer Julia, who wrote, love this show, 5 stars. These guys are so knowledgeable and fun. I learn and laugh so much while listening. Cheers. I would never take beer out of your shopping cart and tell you to fuck off.
Alex, once again, if the folks want to follow Notre Vue Estate on Instagram, where is the best place for them to do so? Notre Vue Estate.
Yeah, yeah. You see, I told you. Yeah, I told you. Social media is not my thing. Yeah, well, the best thing is to come to NotreVue.com and buy some wine. That's the best place.
That is the best place. And you guys are really good on Instagram. Follow them on Instagram at Notre Vue Estate, or visit them once again at NotreVueEstate.com. And also visit WeLikeDrinking.com/pledge to find out information about becoming a patron of our show and helping us out. We promise, if you go to become a patron and you put, say, $5 a month into it, we won't take that $5 out and give it back to you and say we don't want it. You can also find the show notes for this episode with all links to the stories or mentions we had at WeLikeDrinking.com/episodes. All right. That was a lot. We've gone way over. I mean, if Solomon's going to have a rant, we're going long. But here we go. We reach the time of the show where I get to say, okay, panel, let's take one last trip around this table and get some final thoughts before we shut off the lights. John Ruyak.
I'm going to catch a lot of shit for this, and mostly from the two Jeffs on the show. But you know what? There's a show on TV, and the real star of that show is Mr. Carson.
Jeff Solomon.
I have no idea what that was all about.
None.
A couple things. First of all, rest in peace, Dustin Diamond, aka Samuel Screech Powers from the greatest TV show of all time, Saved by the Bell. Fuck cancer. And then also, yeah, everybody can agree, fuck cancer. And then also, I will say this. Fuck everybody and their GameStop and AMC stocks. You're not noble. The folks who got the whole ball rolling are a bunch of rich people on Reddit that said, hey, let's play a fucking prank on some other people that are richer than us. And now there's a bunch of suckers that don't have any money to lose that are now losing their asses at GameStop because they bought it at fucking $3.25 a share. Let me tell you something. If the store, the brick and mortar store that you are investing in happens to be in the same strip mall that John Ruyak brews beer in, it's a fucking bad investment.
Oh.
Please get out before you lose your ass. Please.
There's no GameStop in our strip mall.
There should be. I envision one there.
That Solomon is full of fire tonight. Alex Holman, any final thoughts before we let you get out of here?
Well, we're throwing a party on Valentine's Day, so if you're in the area, you can come on by, and we're throwing a Valentine's food and cheese and hang out. And so we've got a pretty good little event going 3 different times on Sunday, and come on out and have some good views and good wine and good food, and check out the wine club and come by the property. If you're ever in town, you got to come by and hang out, and it's a fun deal. And we won't take anything out of your cart or your glass.
Now, if do folks need to make a reservation for part of that Valentine's Day thing?
Right. Yeah. So just go onto the website and go to the events, and we have 3 times that have spots for 20 people. So, 4 top, we have, different tables. And so we can do 11, 1, and 3, I believe, are the times. And so you just pick your time you want to come and reserve your table.
All right. That sounds like a blast. If I was there, I'd do it. Jeff Solomon will probably be skateboarding next door
Right.
And so he'll probably book a time. And Alex, man, I thank you so much. I know we had some problems getting you on, but it was so worth it to get you on here. This was a lot of fun getting to know you, getting to taste your wines, and getting to know more about your facility and your process and everything else. So thank you so much for taking time to join us and share these wines with us. It's been amazing.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you. Learned a
You're
lot.
welcome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
all the good words.
And with that, I'll say thanks again for joining us at the We Like Drinking podcast.
Where you'll never drink alone.
We thought Alex was going to have to drop, so we didn't tell him about the whole camera punch thing.
Yeah, I guess I should have done some research.
That was great, Alex. Man, these wines are fantastic. Thank you so much for sending us. I am loving this proprietor's blend. I know you didn't have anything to do with it.
But yours will be even better.
I'm really interested in tasting yours with the higher end of Malbec on it. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us, man. I really appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. And we sent you the sparkling rosé.
Yep.
GSM. Yeah, that's a real special wine. I'm real proud of that one. So make sure you do that at a good occasion. That's a really nice wine that we'll continue to make.
Excellent. Cody watching live says 2 hours you will never get back, Alex. Fuck you, Cody.
Yeah, well, you know.
Oh,
Yeah, I think all of us saw pulled that bottle sparkling out and looked at it and said Valentine's Day.
Yep.
I'm glad that I've made all my vices my profession. So that's all. You know, I could, and my wife has a cannabis kitchen, so I got everything covered.
Oh, that's awesome. I was gonna add, so probably not on that property or you guys
yeah.
are.
She's got her own business in Santa Rosa.
That's very cool.
It's like a cut. She's got her own brands, but she's got more clients. It's like a custom crush facility for edibles, and so her clients are like all the legacy people that didn't have millions of dollars to buy their own facility, and they had a brand, and it just sort of went away with recreation, and so she's making all those brands their product and doing pretty well at that. So
Wow.
So it's good to keep the little guy in and keep all these big boys out, you know. And Mike Tyson's got enough money; he doesn't need pot.
I was gonna say, so there's probably a little bit of a feeling about, you know, Santana coming in and starting his own line.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, and Oprah with all her menstrual CBD stuff, and yeah, no, I mean, celebrities are using their celebrity, but the guys who've been putting in all the work for the last 20 years trying to, you know, perfect their craft, you know, they really got shafted, and hopefully Newsom's going to change some of these laws to cut down the taxes and all that other, and make it so people can actually make some money, because the black market's bigger now than it was before.
Well, yeah, after taxes, what people might think is kind of a break doesn't really turn into one when they're going to buy it.
It's totally so un-American, because it's the only ag product where the farmer pays taxes, the manufacturer pays taxes, and the retailer, and even the distributor. So every link in the chain is taxed, where it's the only, you know, no other ag product is like that.
John, let me ask you something. If you show up to the counter with your blue cheese, and then all of a sudden you see that there's a 35% tax on it, I mean, you're still getting the blue cheese because it's delicious, but
it goes well with it. Well, I might have been more upset if they actually took my chicken wings out of my cart that I'm going to make for Super Bowl, but
Yeah.
What am I? What can I tell you? I live in a blue state, dude.
Yeah.
The bluest state. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well,
And I live in the second bluest state.
Yeah, that's true. Mine's probably third bluest at this point. It was red 10 years ago, and now it's like the third bluest. So, Alex, the show will go live for audio on Friday.
okay.
I'll get information out sometime tomorrow. I've got some editing to do with this one. There's some clicks and whatnot throughout it, so I've got some work to do on this one. But so you'll get links and everything sometime tomorrow, and then whoever runs your social media, hopefully, will start sharing it on Friday.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I drew a blank on the Instagram question.
No,
Yeah.
like Jen,
They all our
It's
guests do.
every other guest doesn't know the Instagram. It's all good.
generally, I try to be like, hey, when we get to this section, do you want me to take it or do you want to take it? But I was so convinced that you were going to have to drop that I didn't tell you everything that happened.
I'm really glad you didn't, because I really learned a lot about fermentation and stuff. So that was kind of neat. That was really neat.
Yeah, I really wanted to ask you about your crush pad, what you do there, but you brought it up early on. I think that's just fascinating. We could have spent a whole much more time on that, but we were already going long, so I didn't.
Yeah, no, I'm really lucky in the fact that the owners sort of allow me to do whatever I want, and I don't have to look over my shoulder, and and it's just me in the heat of the battle. It's me and my assistant winemaker doing 100 to 200 tons, just two guys.
Wow.
And so, I'm getting my hands dirty and doing the work. I'm not sitting behind a desk, fucking doing recipes for food pairings. I'm actually
that's a lot of freaking. I've done harvest at a winery. I know what a box looks like. That's a lot of freaking grapes, dude.
Yeah.
That's a lot of freaking grapes.
2019, I worked 55 straight days.
Oh,
No day off.
Wow.
But you got to do it. Somebody's got to do pump overs on Sunday, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And
Awesome.
if you're only two guys, then you just gotta do it. But it just makes so much difference that I'm tasting everything every day of its life. I'm nurturing and I'm changing its diapers. I'm not just sitting back and going, oh yeah, you guys did a good job. It's like, no, it's my work. And that's unusual in this business a lot.
Do you talk to the fermenters?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So a real short story. I brewed a strong Scotch ale on October 31st, the day that Sean Connery passed away. So on our menu board, it reads 007 strong Scotch. But I talked to that fermenter every day from the time I brewed it until the time it went in the keg.
Yep.
I don't know. It helps.
No, it does. It
helps
does.
me.
Knowing where all its little, warts and everything, and just being in touch with it every day, because it's a living entity, and I'm just a yeast farmer, and it's when you think about it in that regard, it changes it up a little bit.
All right, folks on YouTube, thank you for sticking with us the whole time. It was awesome having you guys all in here.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. We'll be looking to see you down here in Albuquerque.
It's so funny, like when we have guests that maybe the peanut gallery isn't super into, the chat is just like nonstop. Or if it's just the three of us, the chat is just nonstop. And tonight, it's like once we get to the interview portion, it just went silent because
everybody was listening. That was cool as shit.
Yep. So
they were listening, Alex. That was pretty cool.
Good. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Well, yeah, I love talking about wine.
So folks, it was awesome having you in here tonight. And let's see. While I got you here, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna say, Chelsea, next time you do go on a lizard tail run, Ruyak is smashing that growler right before you walk out the door.
So next week we're drinking beer on the show, so stay tuned for that. If you're a Patreon, you get to help select what we're drinking. Hopefully you choose better than they did last month.
You can have some younger on there.
Yeah, we could
get it.
All right, talk to y'all next week, YouTubers. Yes, Cody, you did mention his beautiful hair. We do appreciate you.